Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, welcome to Trollheim with your host, Rabbi Anibal. So happy to be with all of you this Thursday afternoon, studying a little bit of Torah. So thank you for being there. Welcome, Brenda. Glad to have you in the class always. Shelly, Lori, welcome. Let's see who is there. If you're tuning in, please say hello. I would like to welcome you personally. Hello, Holly. Welcome. Shelly, is it minus 15? I was afraid to check the temperature. I know it's cold. I know it's still cold. It shouldn't be this cold. We are already in March. But I heard that next week is going to be a little bit better. But yeah, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, Lori. I don't know. I should have my calculator next to me for all these classes so we can know exactly what we are talking about. Because some of you guys talking Fahrenheit, pounds, and inches, and some others on this side of the North continent, the North America, we speak in Celsius, kilos, and centimeters. So it's hard. We have to start making all these, mental calculations every time I show up to class, which I don't know. It's good, but just check someone online. That's 55 is cold. Let's see. How much is that? And I will open the calculation here. If it's 55 Fahrenheit to Celsius. That is 12 degrees. Come on. 12 degrees, we're all outside with our bathing suits. I'm not exaggerating here. I'm honest. 12 degrees, I still have my pool open at the end of the season, just like I heat in the water, but everything. Hello, David. Welcome. Ariel Lee, welcome to the class. Yeah. 55 is 12. No, but 66, you say. Lori, 66. And that is even better. 18 degrees. 19. Ha! That is lake temperature already. Lake temperature. Here is minus 20. And I will tell you, Lori, for everybody in the United States, I will let you know that minus 20 is minus 4 Fahrenheit. That's the temperature in Winnipeg right now. Minus 4 Fahrenheit. Okay? So now we all can speak the same language. Welcome, Janet. Welcome to the class. Today, we have an interesting class. It's the end of the book of Leviticus. No, actually, Exodus. End the book of Exodus. Next week, we are going to start with Leviticus. Vayakel-Pekudei. 2 parshiot for the price of 1. So if you come to synagogue, it's going to be kind of a long Torah reading. Plus, we have another extra book, which we always read at the beginning or right before the beginning of the month of Nisan, which is the month of Pesach, which is a very important one because all the festivals are going to be calculated based on Pesach. All the adjustments in the calendar. I mentioned this before, but it's always good to repeat it. Always good to repeat it for us to fully understand and never forget how the Jewish calendar works. Remember that the Jewish calendar, it is mainly lunar. It means that it follows the cycles of the moon, and that's how we calculate month, right? Every month is one lunar month. But the problem is the lunar calendar is 11 days shorter than the solar calendar. So that will get us out of sync with the seasons fairly quickly. So in 3 lunar years, you already lost a month, 30 days or so. So what the rabbis did is to add one extra month once every 2 or 3 years. And also some years, some of the month will be 29 days long and some of the others will be 30 days long. but it changes. It's not always the same thing. It's a very sophisticated calculation that the rabbis came out with, but it's all because of Pesach. All because of Pesach. Because Pesach, according to the Torah, has to be during the month of the Haviv, which is the spring. So if Pesach gets out of sync and all of a sudden it's not in the spring, then we have a problem. So that's why the rabbis made this hybrid calendar that is mainly lunar, but is adjusted and is to be synchronized with the solar calendar as well. So all the festivals, not just Pesach, can correspond to a specific season of the year. Okay, so that's the thing with the calendar. So before the month of Nisan, which is a month of Pesach, we read the portion in the Torah in the second scroll talking about that this month is going to be the first month for us, and that also implies the obligation to create a calendar and many other things. So, yeah, Lori said, who has started cleaning? Actually, my wife did. One day I came back home and she already cleaned a whole cupboard. I don't know how she did it during the day, but it was incredible. Everything was clean because she went to the supermarket and already got some of the non-perishable Pesach groceries that we can already get in Winnipeg. So already she bought all the kosher for Passover potato chips and matzah meal, and what else she got? Some tomato sauce and things that they are kosher for Passover that you can buy way in advance before it's sold out, because it can be stored, but you need a corner of your house that is already kosher for Passover, so you can store them properly. So that she already did that, and we are waiting. We are waiting a little bit longer to buy all the fresh stuff that we get for Passover, like cream cheese and butters and thing. Shelly, you said prices are outrageous this year. Every year, come on, every year. And of course, you will notice that as soon as Pesach is over, all those prices go down. But unfortunately, you can't store them from one year to the next. Most of the stuff. Sometimes you can buy, at the end of 1 year Pesach, you can buy the sweetener, for example. That is a big issue, the sweeteners. Why is that? Because, it's all powder. And it has the chemical that it will make your drink sweet, but it has to be blended with some fillers to get the texture, so it looks like sugar, but that is chametz. So it's not. We are not allowed to have it in Pesach. So you need to buy the one that they are kosher for Passover. Just saying. So sometimes if I can, I try to wait until the end of Pesach. Then there is a little sale, and then I stock my cupboard so I will have the sweeteners for the next year, because those last a few years. So yeah. So get your coffee, guys, because we are going to start studying Torah soon. The no clamping agent is all chametz. All those things are all chametz. Sometimes the salt get mixed with that as well. And I was told that the process to add, what's the word? Iodine, I think it is, to the salt, that it also involves chametz. So especially the salt has to be kosher for Passover. Biggest issue with the salt is very difficult to find the table salt. Everything you can get, the kosher salt for Passover, is coarse. So unless you have one of these grinders, which I try, it's good too, it's very difficult to find. But my wife was able to find some salt for this year for Passover, and it's pure salt. There's no additives, so it's really salty. That's what I think I had to remember when I cook. I also do a little bit of cooking, not too much for Passover. I had to remember to scale down the salt, otherwise everything is too salty for Passover. So maybe I should start teaching you guys things about Passover a little bit every week starting next class, because the preparation for Passover are insane. Everything we have to do, including for all of you to start planning selling your chametz. Shelley said in Canada all table salt contain iodine. Yeah, but we were able to find the kosher for Passover ones, the fine salt. And yes, as you say, Shelley, at an outrageous price. Nobody said that it's cheap to be Jewish. Nobody said that. Yeah, Shira can't find anything, you said, Ariel. Yeah, she is amazing, and she found everything. She goes to Sobeys like at least twice a week just to see if there is anything new that I may like or Ronen may like. So she got us, for example, the mayonnaise that I like very much all year round, actually. The kosher for Passover mayonnaise, I like it all year round. Okay, so we're going to study this week's Parsha. It had multiple topics. It's very difficult for me to give you a summary of every single topic mentioned in these 2 weeks Parshiot. So I got to show you just a few texts that I wanted to study with you, including some of the things that we find in this week's Parsha, okay? So let's get to it. And this is the first one that I wanted to talk to you. Because one of the main things about the book of Exodus, is the book of Exodus. So one of the main thing is the Exodus. Right? But it's long gone. We're out of Egypt. And after that, there were, I would say, 3 main goals for the Jewish people. Okay? 2 of those 3 main goals are going to be fulfilled in this week's Parsha. Actually, one of them. The other one, not everything is going to be fulfilled, but it's going to be fulfilled. It's going to be finished next week's Parsha, which is Vayikra, the Leviticus. Hear me out. The first one, and so 3 main goals. One in this book of Exodus. Second one is going to carry over a little bit into Leviticus, and the third one is never going to be fulfilled in Torah times. Okay, it's going to be carried over to the book of Joshua, which is outside the Torah. It's part of the Bible canon, but it's not Torah canon. Okay, so the first one was after the Exodus is to receive the Torah. Check. We received the Torah. We passed that partial already when we got the Torah. The second one is the building of the tabernacle, which is going to start the process in the book of Exodus, and it's going to be completed on Leviticus. Okay, and then it's going to be carried over into Numbers as well when we had the ceremonies and all that. But it's very important that the process of the tabernacle starts in the book of Exodus when they do the fundraising to get all the materials that they needed in order to build the tabernacle. Because, tabernacle is a great idea, but even in those days, without money, they couldn't do anything. Okay? God is already making it clear that for certain things in life, we can't depend on God. We have to provide ourselves with our own materials and resources to do it. Doesn't mean that we don't have God's blessing and thing, but it's up to us. So this is a perfect example. At the end of the book of Exodus, we are going to have all this account of everything that it was collected from the generosity of the Jewish people in order to build the tabernacle. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 1 was the Torah, number 2 was the tabernacle, and number 3 will be entering to the promised land that unfortunately is not going to be fulfilled in the Torah. It's going to be fulfilled in the next book, which is the book of Joshua, where Joshua is going to finally get us into the promised land, and we are going to see how the Jewish people get settled in the land of Israel. Okay? So, let me read a little bit of some of the things that we learn from the account of everything that they got to build the tabernacle. Okay, everything they had to go through to build the tabernacle. So, Exodus 32:21, this week's Parsha, it says, "These are the accounts of the tabernacle, by the command of Moses, by the hand of Itamar, the son of Aaron." Well, the rabbis realize that it's interesting that in this verse 2 names are mentioned. One is Moses and the other one is Itamar. Two names. So the Midrash And the Mishnah will rule on this. Remember, everything that's in the Mishnah is law. It's oral law, but it's law. So it says that sages taught, always appoint at least two people together as trustees over public funds. Even Moses, who enjoyed the full trust of God, as it is written, in all my house he is trusted, figured the account of the sanctuary together with others, as it said, by the hand of Itamar, the son of Aaron. And this is very important, because in Jewish tradition, of course, there are some exceptions. There are some exceptions that they are single individuals that they go around requesting for money. And I don't know if you ever encountered such a thing. Back in the day, they used to call it the schnorrers. I believe these people who used to go from town to town collecting money, and then the word became something derogatory, and the meaning to call somebody a schnorrer. But in the origins of that institution was somebody who was like a fundraiser, who will go from town to town collecting money for yeshivas or thing. And when these people will approach possible donors, usually they will have the local rabbis with them. Because according to Jewish law, you always need at least two people. And this is law. This is law, by the way. You always need at least two people to collect or to take care of the money. So that's why these people with the schnorrers come to towns. They will go talk to a rabbi, to the local rabbi. Say, Rabbi, I'm here. I would like you to help me reach out to your congregation. I'm collecting money for yeshivot in Israel, for example. And then the approach will usually be done by the rabbi and this person that is a professional fundraiser, just to avoid any kind of gossip. Well, I give this money so much money, and I gave this guy so much money. I don't know where the money went. Is he keeping the money? So the rabbi usually is involved to bring a little bit of a aura of legitimacy to these individuals. So it's interesting that the Torah introduces us to the same approach when we are reading that Moses was the one who made all the who was in charge of calculating how much money and metals they collected to build the tabernacle, but Itamar was involved as well, and from there the rabbis, righteously so, say that you will need at least two people. And that's why I should say it's always sketchy. I don't know if it ever happened to you that, when somebody knock at your door asking for money, and you don't know if the guy is legit or not. Has it ever happened to you that somebody knock at the door in your house and there is somebody who shows you a badge sometimes, or a letter of approval or recommendation, something I said that they are coming to collect money on behalf of an organization, and we have a tough decision at the moment, to know if we should give or not. And in fact, you see, I put this for you. That is a real story, but I want to know your opinion. What do you think we should do in these situations? It says, listen to this. A family was watching television one Sunday when a man rang the doorbell. He asked for tzedakah, for charity, for needy families in Israel who were too poor to afford food and clothing. Okay, the family had heard that it was a con artist collecting money around the city. That person pocketed the large sums of money that he received, rather than donating them to those in need. But they were not sure if this was indeed the faker or rather a legitimate collector who helped the needy. They had to make a decision on the spot. Should they give money to this man or not? It's interesting. It's interesting because I'm pretty sure you're all listening to me or reading the screen and saying, oh, good question, right? What would I do if I am in that situation? And that's why the Talmud said, if you can send two people and at least one person is someone who you know, right? That usually helps. when that's why somebody comes from Israel to a congregation, and then the approach will be done by that person and the rabbi. So at least some person who is vouching for this other, for this other. Now, in this day and age, also there are other safeguards, in the sense that you donate money. Let's say that only the rabbi comes to you asking for money. Eventually, you're gonna get a receipt from the synagogue. So there are other ways to involve other people checking the process, even if the other people are not present at the time of the pitch, right? When they ask for money. But the fact that you're getting a receipt that is signed maybe by the CFO of the synagogue make the process halachic. Because as the Torah said, that it was Moses, but it was also Itamar checking everything at a time, right? Now, with these people that they come and knock at doors in this day and age, you kind of excuse yourself for a minute and do a quick internet search to see if that organization is legit, etc. Right? You can also ask for a pamphlet, and it says that do you have any literature or anything, I will be sure to make a donation online, without lying. Honestly, if I always make my donations online. I never carry cash. So if now, I tried to do that once with these organizations that they provide free dental surgeries in Africa. That a man knocked at my door, and they accepted credit card and everything. And I checked thing. It looked legit to me, and I gave, and I still give to this day. This was 2 years ago. I still give my receipts online, and then like a what do you call it? Like a charitable donation receipt at the end of the year. And that's another way to offer to do it online or through a credit card instead of giving cash, because to a person that I don't know what is going to happen. So if you have any doubt, at the end of the day, and I will give you a little bit more of halachic background here, the rabbi said that at the end of the day, it's your decision if you give or not. Even if you have a strong suspicion that the guy may be a con artist, you may say, he may be a con artist, but just because there is a chance that he is not, I will give the money. And that's totally fine. It's up to you. Okay? But it's also totally legit for you to excuse yourself to do a little research. Yeah. Hello, Rocky. Welcome. Yeah, late. No CDT here. Interesting. Well, we may be at the end of the CDT and all that thing here in Canada as well. There are conversations to try to unify the time all year round. Let's see where that goes. Who knows? So, in any case, so that's the thing with this. But let's go back to this week's parsha, okay? And the fact that there was a big fundraising for the tabernacle, and everybody contributed, and the Torah makes a point that at least 2 people were involved in the accounting. All of that to avoid any kind of gossip that maybe somebody pocketed some of this money for themselves. So it's always good to have somebody else to double check everything that is going on, and also to avoid honest mistakes as well, right? So I want to go back to halacha and to show you what the Talmud says or legislates about fundraising in Judaism. And the Talmud makes it very clear in the tractate called Bava Batra. It said, no position involving public money can be filled by less than 2 people. Doesn't matter the reputation of the person, by the way. Doesn't matter. It has to be always a second person double checking everything. Okay? When a position involves deciding how to spend public money, at least 2 people must be involved in making the decisions as well. That's why I said, if somebody knock at your door, because it's not public money, it's private money, it's your money, so you can make a decision if you give this person or not. Now, if you are a charity, the decisions on how that money should be allocated, it has to be made also by at least two people. It can't be one CEO or executive director makes those decisions. It's usually a board in this day, and that is halachic because it has to be at least two people. Hello, Jerome. Welcome to the class. I hope you feel better, my friend. But I'm happy that you made it to Torah L'chaim. Okay? So let's continue with this text. Therefore, when collecting tzedakah monies for public fund, at least two people must be present, or in this day and age, because we collect money in a different way, even if it's one person, the second person is not physically present, but is signing like a receipt that transaction was made, that was the amount, and that money made it into the bank account of the charitable organization. So it's very important that at least we have two people. Hello, Ashira. Welcome. Oh, you call me Rabbi. Ha! Funny of you, Ashira. So, hi, Rabbi. So I should say, hi, doctor. Welcome to the class. Okay. So, any questions about this? About the way we fundraise and all that? And yes, Ashira, this is my third coffee of the day. Before you ask. So, okay, no questions. Let's move on. Hello, Amparo. Welcome to the class. Okay, let's move forward now to verse 40 of the book of Exodus. We are approaching to the end of the book, right? Brenda said, who is counting? Well, everything has to be double checked. That is the other thing. Everything has to be double checked. And it's interesting that even in this week's Parsha, it also made it clear that everything was counted twice. Okay? All the metals and materials that were donated for the tabernacle were counting twice, and we believe that it was done by two different people, just to be sure that no mistakes were made. So everything has to be done. Hello, Randy. Everything has to be done by two people. So you count everything twice. And this is happening, I know it's in the Torah, but even in these days, right? When you have companies and think that at the end of the day, you have the company making their own numbers, and then eventually you have an auditors that it will double check that everything is correct, right? So the Torah gives us this advice that eventually became, I will say, pretty normal in these days to operate this way. So let's continue. Exodus 40:17. It says, it came to pass that the tabernacle was erected. Now, this is very interesting because I want to stop here for a second on the word, it came to pass. Once in a while in the Torah, you will have that expression, it came to pass. The Hebrew word is vayehi. Okay, it came to pass, vayehi. It appears multiple times in the Torah. Now, I want to read this, what the rabbi said, that is very interesting. You'll say what I'm going. It's just fascinating. It says, whenever the Torah uses the word vayehi, it came to pass, it connotes a sad event. Do you know that? That one way or another, every time the Torah says vayehi, something sad is about to happen, or something bad. Now, this is interesting because now the rabbis ask, what sadness was there in the tabernacle's completion? They're just saying, they are all the material. They were able to do this. What's so sad about it? Not that it was built. Of course, I would say it's still not operational, but it's done. So what is so sad about it? It should be celebration after celebration after celebration. Hooray, we did it. Listen to this because this is very interesting and I think applies to many different areas of our life, even though the example that they're going to give is a little sexist, but you have to put it in the context where this is coming from. Okay? I usually don't like to edit things to make us feel a little bit better in the language because we have to understand that it was an evolution in Judaism and even the way we understand certain things. So take it like that, okay? Everything in this text has to be taken into the right context. And it says, what's so sad about the completion of the tabernacle? Let's continue. This is comparable to a king who had a contentious wife. So he said to her, "Make me a purple cloak." So, as long as she was preoccupied with it, she did not quarrel. When her work was completed, she brought it to the king. The king saw it and was pleased with it. And then he began to cry. "I'm so sad." Say his wife, "What is it, my lord? I have labored to do your will, and you cried, 'I'm so sad'?" Well, said he to her, "The work is beautiful and favorable in my eyes. Don't get me wrong. But as long as you were preoccupied with it, you did not anger or provoke me. Now that you're free of it, I fear that you will again anger me. So too, said God, as long as my children were occupied with the tabernacle, they did not complain against me. Now they will again begin to provoke me. Therefore, it says, Vayehi, implying, Vai he. Woe is it. You see when you said oi vai, oi vai, oi vavoi, so basically it's implying that is the same root of the word vayehi, vei, oi vei, vei he. So woe is it. So it's very interesting because forget about, as I said, don't take it too seriously the example, the sexist example that the Midrash brings. Is talking about the concept of sometimes having too much time in our hands and what we do with it, right? That's sometimes, sometimes things out of boredom that we become troublemakers because we have nothing else to do. And this is very common in organizations, for example. People that they are troublemakers, but they are not bad people. They just don't. They have nothing else to do. So coming to an organization could be a synagogue, could be a club, could be so non-profits and other things. It's gives them something to do, and that's what happens. And so basically, what the Torah is implying here is sometimes when we have too much time in our hands, if we don't use that time into something positive, then the risk is that out of boredom, because we have nothing else to do, we'll do things that are not so good, not so nice. So that's what I was saying, that I wanted to take it out of the context of the building of the tabernacle and transform this into a little reflection of ourselves on what we do when we do nothing. You understand? What we do when we do nothing. Do we use that time to do something positive or not? It's a reflection for each one of us. Each one of us. Or maybe we should find ways to occupy our times into doing something positive, because otherwise we know and we have to assume that that's us. Otherwise we do other things that it will take us nowhere. And we will make God angry above all, because this is what it's implying. So I would like to know what you think about this, about having too much time in our hands and how we use our time and stuff like that, right? Because other than Brenda saying, I'd like that midrash, I haven't heard anything else from you guys. So let me know, because I have a coffee getting cold here. What do you think? Otherwise, in a minute, I will go to the next text. We can keep studying this. Yeah, Holly, I understand what you said. Let's see if I can, uh, if I can do it. Right? This is a very interesting thing. This is a more negative expression, uh, but basically, what is implying is, do we have perhaps an opportunity to create spaces where we have people that they have time on their hands to build tabernacles. You know what I mean? To get together people who have time on their hands to build tabernacles, because the alternative of not building tabernacles, or it's like to do holy work, in other words, the alternative to that could be potentially dangerous. So perhaps it's a reflection in that aspect as well. Ashira said, I'm not, what do you say here? Not really familiar with the idea of having too much time in my head. No, I know you're not, because you're always busy. So it's not a problem for you. Rocky said, is, you say here, so it's petitioner, is still nothing wrong with leisure, I hope. No, nothing wrong. But it's just a warning of the danger sometimes of having too much time in our hands, because leisure usually is a season, right? It's a season. But I'm thinking of the people in the desert when they left Egypt, that eventually they had 40 years of leisure because they were fed by God, going around doing nothing. So, you know what I mean? 40 years going around doing nothing, no work, no nothing. They were being fed. They had the manna whenever they want. They had the water coming from the rock, and all the. So that's that's the thing, right? So yeah, but at the end of the day, that Vayehi, the fact that God knew that after they finished building the tabernacle, they would find a way to get together to do something negative. Eventually, it happened. So it was almost prophetic what the Midrash is saying here. And yeah. So let's go to the next text, because I like where this is going. Okay. So what happened? Let's continue with this. They finished the tabernacle, and then when the tabernacle was completed, it says that the glory of God filled the tabernacle. Isn't that an amazing thing when you finish something and then you can enjoy it and feeling that you have God's approval? Because that's what it is. The fact that glory of God filled the tabernacle, it's almost like they had God's approval for everything they went through and for this amazing fundraising that they did. They have God's approval. It's a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. So I'm going to bring to you another midrash, trying to expand a little bit of the concept of the glory of God. What is the glory of God? Well, we are going to see in a minute that how one of the words we use to define the glory of God is the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is the aspect of God that is the closest to us, and sometimes in the Torah it was even manifested in a physical form, like smoke and things. We're going to see in a minute. But this is the time where they were able to see or to perceive somehow the glory of God filling the tabernacle, and it was probably a great spiritual experience to perceive that. So, the Midrash, they said as follows. What is the meaning of the verse from Song of Song? I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. That means that God says, I have returned to my bridal chamber, to the place which has been my principal abode from the very beginning. So, interesting, before I continue, what this text is trying to explain the glory of God filled the tabernacle, feels as that something that it was there before So the Shekhinah was down close to us, and for some reason, it departed. And it was not perceived almost from the beginning of times until now. Until now, that generation after generation of righteous people, they were able, little by little, step by step, to bring this Shekhinah back to us until this sacred moment where the glory of God filled the tabernacle. Something I was never experienced before by multiple generations. So it is an incredible time. And this is something that, of course, we want to replicate in our generations as well, to be sure to bring the Shekhinah, to make it presence in our house of worship, in our synagogues, in our homes. Okay? So let's see this, because this text is going to be dealing with the departure and the returning of the Shekhinah. So, it says, for was not the principal abode of the Shekhinah, divine present, in the terrestrial regions? So basically, isn't the Shekhinah meant to be with us here on earth? Not up there, here on earth. Isn't that the goal? How do we know that? We know that because for it is written in Genesis 3:8, they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden. So in other words, one interpretation of the voice of the Lord walking in the garden, that is the perception of the Shekhinah. As I mentioned, that perception was perceived differently in different times. Okay? So let's continue with the same text. But this is what happened. This is what the rabbis explain. When Adam sinned, the Shekhinah betook itself up to the first heaven. So when Adam's transgression pushed the Shekhinah one step higher, so we were a little further from it. When Cain sinned, it betook itself to the second heaven. When the generation of Enosh sinned, it ascended to the third heaven. When the generation of the flood sinned, it rose to the fourth heaven. When the generation of the Tower of Babel sinned, it moved up into the fifth heaven. When the people of Sodom sinned, it rose into the sixth heaven. And when the Egyptians sinned, it ascended into the seventh and final heaven. So this is too Kabbalistic for us. We don't have time to spend too much time talking about it, but Kabbalah will talk about seven heavens. And it's interesting because the higher you go there, the more detached you are from the physical world. Okay, so if the Shekhinah is up there, we can barely perceive it. We can barely feel it. It's like a source of light, right? That we keep moving up. The higher the light is, it might be a little wider, but then you struggle to being able to use it for a purpose. That's the thing. So let's continue. Then arose 7 righteous people who brought the Shekhinah down from the celestial to the terrestrial regions. Who were these 7 righteous people? Abraham brought it down from the 7th to the 6th. Isaac brought it down from the 6th to the 5th. Jacob brought it down from the 5th to the 4th. Levi brought it down from the 4th to the 3rd. Kehat, also from Levi, the descendants of Levi, brought it down from the 3rd to the 2nd. Amram, and that was Moses' father, brought it down from the 2nd to the 1st. And Moses brought it down from the celestial to the terrestrial region. So Moses was able to complete this process by leading the Jewish people, but also by coordinating the construction of the tabernacle. Moses was the last link into this chain. But I believe that it's not just Moses, because it was Moses and his generation that they were all working together to make this happen. So let's continue here. When did the Shekhinah came to dwell on earth again? On the day when the tabernacle was erected. As it says, the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of God filled the tabernacle. So this is very interesting because it's talking about a multi-generational process to bring the Shekhinah closer to us. And I believe this is important for all of us to understand, because sometimes it's really discouraging when we are trying to do something for this world or for our community, for our synagogue, for our family, for others, and then you feel that your life is not long enough to achieve everything that you are trying to achieve. So the message is, don't worry, you have to do your best. You have to play your part. Your work may not be completed. That's why Pirkei Avot in the Mishnah says, you know, it's not up to you to complete the job, the task, but it's not up to you to quit. So it is up to you to quit. So basically, it's in your hand never to quit the task. Now, success or failure is in the hands of God. How far you're going to go is in the hands of God. Your job is to keep moving. Okay? Your job is to keep moving. And we see this here with great tzaddikim, with great righteous people that they are way more righteous than you and I. And they couldn't complete the task on their generation. And it took multiple generations to bring the Shekhinah back. So we should never get discouraged because we cannot complete what we want to do. Yeah. What are you guys talking here? I'm looking just at the chat, and I think you're a little distracted with other conversations. It's very interesting. Ashira, what do you say here? Is it, let's see, I remember learning that jobs considered completed by God, which could be a very different benchmark from the one we ourselves set. Yeah, and our job is to do our 100%. That is our job, our 100% of whatever is in front of you. The thing is, even by you doing the 100%, the job may not be completed or may need further follow-ups. And sometimes it's a multi-generational thing. And we see it with many organizations that, they have great people leading organizations, and then eventually those people retired, right? But the organization doesn't die. There is somebody else who gets hired into that position, and then it continues. And you can't really tell that eventually it's going to be, everything is going to be completed. There will always be a need in every generation. But the goal is for each one of us to feel that we are leaving that place better than when we took it. You know what I mean? It's a step closer. So that's why what happened to Shekhinah, each one of these great people, even though they were not able to completely bring the Shekhinah down, when they left this world, they left the world knowing that the Shekhinah was one step closer. So it's a very interesting. Rocky says, she is right, we are on a mission to find it. Yeah, but we do what we can do, and God will do the rest. Let's put it that way. Now, the Shekhinah, I wanted to make it clear because it's an interesting concept. The Shekhinah, we usually translate it as divine presence, but unfortunately sometimes it's translated differently. So we have to be careful what words we use for that. That's why I try to use all with the Hebrew, Shekhinah. But the most common translation is divine presence. It's the part of the divine that you can experience in this world. The most evident part of God. That's why we call it divine presence. So let me read this. Shekhinah refers to the visible manifestation of God's presence on earth, often represented as a cloud, fire, or glory. It signifies God's intimate, localized presence with humanity, such as in the tabernacle, rather than an abstract, distant God. Okay, so it was this that we have this concept of the Jewish people. Then once the temple was destroyed, remember the temple used to host the Shekhinah, but once the temple was destroyed, the Shekhinah came with us into exile, and is our goal to try to bring the Shekhinah as closer to us as possible. And it's a tall order, but that's why this parsha said, "Don't worry, even Abraham and Isaac, they weren't able to, to complete their job, and it's something that takes multiple generations, but we have to keep trying to bring the Shekhinah down to us." So that's our thing. You see, the reminder that we have that job is this: the kippah. The kippah is a reminder that the Shekhinah is above us. That's what it is. So the Talmud will say, Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, will not walk 4 cubits with an uncovered head. He said, I do this, right? I do this because the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is above my head, and I must act respectfully. So one of the reasons of the kippah is to remind us that the Shekhinah is always above us. And that's why the shape, the dome-like shape of the kippah, to remind us of the Shekhinah above us, protecting us, but also the responsibility that we have to behave in accordance with having the Shekhinah above us at all time. Look at think about the way we behave when we are in front of somebody important, right? But if we have a reminder, a daily reminder, that Shekhinah is always there with us, then I bet we are going to act differently. Okay, so the kippah is to remind us of the Shekhinah. It's not in the Torah, it's not even in the Talmud, but it became a Jewish thing because it is, again, a multi-generational reminder that we have to bring the Shekhinah closer to us. So about the kippah, what I wanted to say is, when do we use a kippah? And I think we are going to wrap up with this. And I want to present to you a few examples of when the kippah has to be worn. Okay? So it's from the biblical standpoint, only the Kohanim, the priests, serving in the temple were required to cover their heads. They have special hats, actually, that they are described in the Torah. All this hat, there was like a crown thing that they have to wear. So we already have at least a precedent of the people involved in the worship, even though there were no synagogues, they were at the temple. So they have to cover their heads. So it's not crazy for us to think that now that we don't have a temple, we have to somehow cover our heads, kind of mimicking what the priests used to do. Okay? Next, yet for many centuries, the obligatory custom has been for Jewish men to wear a kippah all the time. As the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch, says, it is forbidden to walk 4 cubits without a head covering. Okay. Now, does a kippah have to be worn while playing sports, for example? And the answer is, if it is impossible because of the game conditions or rules, it is okay to play without a kippah. Okay? After all, it's just a custom. It's just a custom. It's not a biblical law or anything like that. So if you have to do sports, that you cannot wear a kippah, you don't wear a kippah. Now, when bathing or swimming, one does not wear a kippah. Okay? A head covering is obligatory while engaged in prayer and Torah study. So while it's recommended to wear it at all times, the 2 times that we have to do it is when we pray or when we study Torah. Okay? And then anything, including a baseball cap or a scarf tied around one head, qualifies as a head covering. So, yeah, if you're in a situation where you don't want to wear a kippah because it may be dangerous, or maybe you're a person who likes to cover their heads all the time, but you are going to be in a place that is very windy or playing a sport or thing, you can wear a hat. A baseball cap is totally fine. It's totally fine to wear it at all times, but according to the rabbis, if you're going to come to shul, wear a kippah. It's more respectful to use a regular kippah in shul and not to use a baseball cap or a toque or something like that. You're in shul, wear a kippah. Okay? Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to this edition of Torah L'Chaim, always with your host, Rabbi Anibal Mas. So happy to be here with you week after week. So if you haven't done so, give us a thumbs up for the video, right? And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channels. That's always good. So you will be notified every time we go live, right? Or every time we upload something to our platforms. It's always great to be in touch with all of you in so many different ways of forms, and we are very active online. So please subscribe so we can be in touch beyond the scope of Torah L'Chaim. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe. I hope to see you soon. And if you missed any part of this class, don't worry. We are going to rebroadcast this class tonight at 8 Central Time. Okay, Central, Western Central. Okay, for people who are in a different time zone like Rocky here. So it's going to be restream 8 p.m. Central Daytime tonight. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.